Theo says, what does that mean, blocks ahead of schedule? Is it one every 10 minutes? It's a good question. It's a very good question because a lot of things around Bitcoin. So if you can understand this within Bitcoin, you're going to have a better understanding of the Bitcoin layer one network itself. So let's dive into this a little bit. It's a key part of Bitcoin. All right, so the essential flow here of Bitcoin is that if I were to send Theo some Bitcoin right now, if he gave me his Bitcoin address and I sent him some Bitcoin, what would happen there is that essentially that transaction would go into the mempool, which is pretty much these green blocks over here waiting to be put into a block. It's like a waiting pool. It's like a lobby for people who have sent a transaction, broadcast it, but they haven't paid a high enough fee yet to be put into a block. So every 10 minutes on average, there's supposed to be a new block mined. So it's not every 10 minutes evenly or, exactly. Nothing's based on time within Bitcoin. It's all based on block height. So block height is the time on layer one. So every 10 minutes here on average, there's a new block that's mined. And the reason for that, so you can see that kind of kicks in the difficulty adjustment here. So we're 73 blocks ahead right now, ahead of schedule, which is quite high. But this difficulty adjustment here, that's what self-regulates the Bitcoin layer one network, the difficulty adjustment. So it happens every X amount of blocks, not time. That's why it says approximately 5 days, but it's all based on the block height here. So at a certain block height, the difficulty adjustment will kick in. And if the blocks are ahead of schedule, like we are right now, we're 73 blocks ahead, that means the difficulty adjustment goes up because the blocks are coming in too fast. And we don't want the blocks to come in too fast because then the network can't get consensus that everything's valid and accurate in there. So we want it every 10 minutes. That's the goal here. On the flip side of things, you can see here the previous difficulty adjustment was 2.2% downwards adjustment. And downwards adjustments happen when it's taken too long. So when it's taken miners too long to find a block over an average here, it's not like one block at a time, but over the time frame there, that's when the difficulty adjustment goes down because it has to be easier for people to find the block so that we can get back on schedule. So everything's kind of based around that 10-minute increment on average. And when they're coming in too fast, the difficulty goes up. When they're coming too slow, when it's taking miners too long to find the next block, the difficulty adjustment goes down. So that's how Bitcoin kind of self-regulates itself. And it's not anybody like in an office somewhere in the world. This is just built into the protocol, built into the code, the way this happens. And it's all based on the hash rate, essentially. So if you look at the hash rate here, you can see that we just hit an all-time high, February 5th. 108 terahash. No, sorry, that's the difficulty. The hash rate was 981 exahash per second, which looks like it was an all-time high. So that's why, because there's more people plugging. Think of this hash rate basically just as people plugging into the network. So every time somebody plugs in a miner, adds energy to the Bitcoin network, the hash rate goes up. Every time somebody unplugs a miner, takes away energy and electricity from the network, it goes down. The hash rate goes down. So everything's based around the hash rate here, the amount of people who are plugging into the network. And that's what changes the difficulty adjustment too. It's directly tied to it here. So you can see from September 24th, we had about 10 upwards adjustments in a row because the hash rate just kept going up. And we had our first downwards one in January this year. So that's a little breakdown of the blocks and the importance of that and how it ties to the difficulty adjustment and how the Bitcoin network essentially just self-regulates itself, which is pretty badass, I think.